listening to TC Talks on TNT.
What's going on, guys? It is TC here, back with another episode of TC Talks, and I just want to dive right into it today. No fun intro for you. I'm sorry. I do apologize. Like, share, subscribe, comment down below. You know, why don't you guys tell me, do you like the new thing that they're doing with music where they're remixing with older songs, like First Class by Jack Harlow has Glamorous by Fergie, as, you know, mixed in with it. It has the chorus from it. Like, do you like that style? Do you like what they're doing? Or do you think it's like, dude, go do your own thing already? But I don't know. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. But let's dive into it, guys. All right, you got a little intro. But the Akron Beacon. We're going to be talking Akron Beacon Journal. Let's give them the correct name. We're going to be diving into the Deshaun Watson situation. And you all know, 6-game suspension. And while we could dive into all those details about the suspension, about, you know, how this looks for the NFL, if Roger Goodell is going to, you know, challenge this ruling, XYZ, I do think that there's a hidden gem that nobody's talking about. And by gem, I think it's a skeleton in the closet. There is a skeleton in the closet in the NFL, and quite frankly, all these people that I've watched talk about the Deshaun Watson situation, they're not talking about this issue. So we're going to go ahead and cover it right here on TC Talks for you. So without further ado, let's dive into it. So this highlights some of the specific things within that 16-page report that the Judge Robinson put forth onto why she gave a 6-game suspension and all that. And essentially, it's pretty condemning of the NFL. Now, I know we all know Calvin Ridley got suspended for a full season for gambling. And on top of all that, we've seen players get, in my opinion, maybe overly suspended just for using something that they said they wouldn't use in the NFL. And to a certain extent, you know, I see why they're trying to crack down. But in other ways, when you look at it compared to these other things that we're going to bring up, it's kind of overkill. And what do I mean other things? These other issues that players get into. In fact, these are crimes that players get into. So let's dive into that. This says from the article that she wrote, she being Robinson, she wrote that, quote, only 2 players have been suspended for 8 games. One for multiple incidents of domestic violence, and the second for the assault of multiple victims. I'm assuming assault means battery. You know, like it's a physical fight. It's not, you know, what Deshaun Watson did. So with that in mind, these people are literally some of the biggest, scariest people in the world. We are literally talking about like a 6'3", 225-pound man, give or take a few inches, give or take 10 or so pounds. Perhaps even bigger, because you know those linemen get up to like 300, 320. I would say you have to be over 300 at this point to be in the NFL, especially if you're a guard. But in either case, my point being is these are big dudes, ginormous guys that would knock the average man onto his butt. Right? Like, I mean, these are tanks. I mean, you could be somebody like Kyler Murray and just be an absolute, you know, explosive little ball of football skill. You know? I mean, the guy's insane. But in either case, my point is you got this big dude who is either going out and assaulting multiple people, getting an 8-game suspension, or you have a dude that has beaten his wife or some domestic partner multiple times. That's who got an 8-game suspension. So it doesn't take you beating your wife once. It doesn't take you getting into a fight once or twice. Maybe it was twice, because twice is multiple. But I would assume that would mean more than 2, because I kind of feel like unless they're trying to overplay the situation, which maybe this judge is, that they would if it was 2, they would say 2. If it was more, they would say, you know, what they did. But perhaps I'm wrong. Maybe that's wrong for me to assume that. But it continues that a single player has been suspended for 10 games, again, for multiple incidents of domestic violence in which the player pled guilty to battery. So this is not a small issue. These are serious crimes that people are going out and committing, and they're only getting, half the season gone at worst. I mean, I'm not at worst, half the season gone, or, a little bit more than that. That's it. And then especially now that we play 17 games in the NFL, that means that it's even less of an impact. That means less than half the season for those suspended with 8 games. So that's ridiculous. That is a terrible standard to have to hold it to. Like, you could really go out there and beat your significant other and not get suspended for a season. Or suspended, like, you literally only suspended for half the season for multiple times of doing it, not just one. Now, I personally think the standard should be, if you hit your wife, that should be it. I mean, like, we're always out here talking about women's rights and all this, but I mean, a simple basic right for all women, they deserve not to be punched in the face by their spouse, or to have their, now divorced significant other go out there and make millions of dollars after giving them all this trauma and suffering. I mean, that just seems what's fair to me. And it seems like that should be the standard, that if you're going to hurt people, if your whole idea of what goes on in this world is pain, and you're the one who's going to bring it, because that seems what some of these people believe in. I'm not saying that's all of these people that have gotten into trouble, and I'm not saying that's all the people in the NFL. I'm saying it is those crazy, those like wild ones who we've seen are just, perhaps going through CTE, or are perhaps just a little bit more unhinged than other players. But regardless of why, we do see some of these players just get crazy. And when we allow the NFL to do this, when we say, oh, it doesn't matter, when we don't fight tooth and nail to get these instances noticed, then this is exactly what's going to happen. We're going to have an instance just like this Deshaun Watson case. Again, maybe not on the same exact issue, but on a similar issue. And because we have gone so light on everything that has happened, because we've been okay with Ray Rice punching his girlfriend right in the face, making her fall to the ground in an elevator, because we've let Michael Vick, who made dogs fight each other, who literally tortured and killed dogs for his own pleasure and fun, we allow people like that back into the NFL. And I'm not saying they haven't been redeemed. I'm not saying we shouldn't forgive them, but we put them back into a position of power. That shows you that when you have that power, when you are that good, when you just can't be beaten at something that people like, that means you can't be beaten at all. That means you get to go back to the NFL and make your millions. That means you get to come back and not have to worry about being prosecuted, and not worrying about missing even a full season, despite the fact that you were a young man who could definitely grow up and become a better football player, even if you missed just one lousy season. And I know you missed one last year, but the fact is, he decided to do that on his own. He went out there and sat because he wanted a trade from Houston. So anybody who tries to say that this helps alleviate what's going on, no, this was a selfish man making a selfish decision to make a financial gain to go to a different place, and at a time when he was being the most selfish by committing these sexually heinous acts against all of these women. That's the person we're talking about. And this is the person that's going to be able to play in the NFL this season. And if you agree with that, that's just horrible. If you're not as outraged as other people have been, then you need to get on the train. That's the fact of the matter, is the NFL fan base needs to step up and say enough is enough. We do not want these bad people in this league. We don't want these people distorting the image that NFL players should have, because there's no reason for you to look at an NFL player and think anything other than that is exactly what I would love to grow up to be. But instead, we sometimes, not always, get these clowns who are unable to live up to that standard to a certain extent. And I understand why. I mean, we do expect these people to be role models and like to be able to be just the most perfect human beings. But when it comes to stuff like this, that is obvious over the line, that isn't making a stupid bet on a game, that isn't, going out and using something that people use to have fun. It is going out and being a evil person committing evil acts against our fellow people. That's unacceptable. We wouldn't want to invite those people into our homes. Why would we want them to be on the football field? I mean, maybe you do want Deshaun Watson in your house just because he's Deshaun Watson, but let me just say one thing. No matter what you do, make sure your wife is not home. Make sure it's just you and Deshaun hanging out. Make sure you're only talking about playing, watching football, and not doing anything else that Deshaun would do. Make sure you're having a good time, but do it responsibly. All right. I don't know. I'm going to leave it at that. Let me know what you guys think about the Deshaun Watson case in the comment section down below. I hope you're as furious as I am. If you're not, tell me why not. This is some ridiculous stuff that I think we're dealing with. And especially for the NFL, after screaming that they would go out and say that we are definitely challenging it if it's under 6 games. Is this 6 games enough? Is 6 good enough, or are they going to go out and do more? All the outcry from the NFL and a 6-game suspension to amount to all the outcry, to all the finger pointing, to this year-long process of shouting at how bad Deshaun Watson is. Is the NFL actually going to live up to that? I'll let you guys tell me what you think in the comment section down below, and fate will decide. Roger Goodell has 72 hours to make that decision before that is finalized by that ruling. This has been TC with another episode of TC Talks. Until next time, peace.